This is my 2022 Rift Zone by Marin, and I absolutely love this bike. Whoa! Oh, this is the 2023 version. Let's compare my 2022 model to this 2023. This is gonna be awesome. Now let's go ahead and do a comparison between the geometries of the 2022 versus the new 2023 model. So I tried to line these bikes up as best as possible so you guys could really see the difference between the two models. As you can see on the 2022 model, the head tube is a little bit lower and it's a little bit shorter. That's because the suspension changed on the 2023. And then not to mention, the standover height is a little bit lower on the 2023 versus the 2022. So now that you have visually seen the difference between the 2022 and the 2023, let's go ahead and let's dig into the detailed specs of it all. So the stack height is going to be 637.3 versus 611.7. So the stack height did change quite a bit on the 2023 model. The reach got a little bit longer at 485 versus 480 millimeters. The head tube angle stayed at that nice slack 65.5 degrees on both models. The head tube length grew quite a bit this year at 125 millimeters versus 110. The seat tube angle went to 77 degrees versus 76 degrees. The seat tube length stayed the same at 425 millimeters. The effective top tube length didn't change all that much this year, 632.1 versus last year 632.51. The bottom bracket height comes in at 343 millimeters versus 344 millimeters. The bottom bracket drop changed to 35 millimeters from 34 millimeters. The chainstay got a little bit longer at 430 millimeters versus 425 millimeters. I'm gonna be really curious if I can see the difference in that 5 millimeter chainstay length. Is this bike gonna be as playful as the 2022 model? We're just gonna have to find out. The bike actually grew just a little bit in length at 1,234.4 millimeters versus 1,213 millimeters. So what I think is actually coming into play there is the longer chainstay and just the different design in the rear triangle. One of the huge benefits of the new Rift Zone is the standover height has significantly dropped. So the new standover height is 701.7 versus 717.83 millimeters. Having that little bit lower standover height is really gonna give you that feeling of the bike being more nimble as you go down the trail. Now the fork offset changed a ton. It went to 44 millimeters versus 37 millimeters. The seat post diameter is the same, it's 30.9, so if you have a 2022 model and you're wanting to upgrade to the 2023 and you have a dropper post, you can just transfer that right over. Now the handlebar width didn't change at all, and I'm really excited about that because I believe Marin has dialed this in, at least for a rider like myself, at 780 millimeters. I absolutely love that bar width. It's my go-to every single time. Now on their website, they do say that the stem length is the same at 35 millimeters, but I found looking at the 2022 model, mine came with a 45 millimeter stem, and the 2023 model comes with a 35 millimeter stem. And just looking at the bikes, you can really see that 10 millimeter difference. And so I'm wondering, is that gonna really make a huge difference going down the trail? Now, one change that they did make that I'm really happy to see is they changed the crank lengths to 170 millimeters, all the way from 175. Last year, the only way that you could get 170 millimeters is if you bought the small frame bike. Now, one thing I'm super impressed with on the 2023 model versus the 2022 is the internal cable routing. They nailed it on this. There's only one spot on the frame where you're gonna have those little rubber plugs, and that's gonna be on the seat tube if you're gonna run a dropper post. Now, some of you may have heard about SRAM's new transmission. That is a brand new derailleur setup that uses UDH. That's Universal Derailleur Hanger. And all of the aluminum models, the 1, the 2, and the XR, all come pre-ready for this UDH setup. And I think that's awesome. So you can run a standard rear derailleur or you can upgrade to the SRAM UDH setup. And to me, that's making this bike frame future-proof, and I really do like that. Now let's talk about the rear axle on this. This is not a through axle. It is a boost spacing, but it is using a standard quick release skewer. But what they did really nice, so it doesn't look like you have a quick release, is they took the quick release action out of it and made it a bolt-on skewer. So you couldn't tell if this bike had a quick release or not. The nice thing is that this is fully upgradable. So if you upgrade these wheels, you can just simply upgrade to a through axle set. This makes this bike even more universal. All right guys, I'm gonna jump in here real quick. I just wanna ask you guys, if you are enjoying this content, click that subscribe button. And if you really enjoy the content and you really wanna help out the channel, jump over to my member section and become a member for as little as $1 a month. All right, let's get back to the Rift Zone. Now, one of the things that's really cool about this year is that they actually upgraded the size of the suspension all the way around. On the aluminum models, you're gonna get 130 millimeters of travel in the back, which is an upgrade from 125 millimeters. And then on the front, you're gonna increase it by 10 millimeters also. You're gonna go up to 140 millimeters versus the 130 that came on the 2022 model. Now, I really like how with the 2023 model, they matched the front and the rear suspension. I always like to see similar brands. It's not that you can't ride a bike with a different rear shock than the front fork, but I think that when manufacturers design and develop their suspension setups, they design them to work with their components. So on the 2022 model, you had the X Fusion rear shock, but you had the RockShox Recon up front. This year they put on the newest X Fusion rear shock, which gives you that 130 millimeters of travel. And then they also put on a matching front fork made by X Fusion. The last X Fusion fork that I rode was on my Giordano whenever I did that budget build, and I absolutely love that fork. So I'm really excited to test out this combination. Not only that, these are 34 millimeter stanchions on the X Fusion fork versus 32 that came on the Recon. So for the specific type of fork that this is from X Fusion, it is their Slide Boost RC. And then the rear shock is their O2 Pro R. Now the wheels that are gonna come on this are gonna be Marin branded, just like last year, and they're also gonna stick with that 29 millimeter internal width, and they are tubeless compatible. Now this does come with the exact same tire setup, which is the V-Tire Crown Gems, and these are gonna be 29 by 2.35. Now I am happy to see that this does come with the 11-speed drivetrain. It's a Dior shifter with a Dior rear derailleur that has a built-in clutch, and it is the HG system since it's their 11-speed setup. I really do like the HG setups that you can get with the 11 speeds and lower because it's really easy and inexpensive to find replacement parts. Now the crankset that comes on this is a Marin branded crankset, and it is a 32 tooth. Now this is in combination with the sealed external bearing bottom bracket. Now this comes with a nice black Sunrace cassette that's 11 to 52 tooth. So you have a huge range. This is almost the biggest cassette that you can possibly get. I think if you want to go a little bit higher, you have to go with like a SRAM Eagle to get a 52 tooth. But 11 is as small as you can get whenever you're looking at the HG hub. Now online, this claims that it comes with Tektro brakes, but that's not the version that came with mine. Mine came with Shimano 201 hydraulic brakes, and that comes with a 2-piston setup that runs on 180 millimeter rotors that can only accept resin pads. So, sorry Cobra Kyle, this is a resin pad only bike at the moment. Now this does come with a nice FSA headset that you don't have to worry about doing much maintenance with. Now one thing I did notice versus the 2022 model and the 2023 model is on the 2022 model, the headsets seem to fit the frame absolutely perfect. It went from edge to edge. On this particular one that I received, it looks like it doesn't go quite edge to edge. Now, I'm not super worried about that. It just makes me wonder what was changed. Did FSA change the way that they built their headsets, or is that head tube actually just a little bit wider on this new model? Now, the full retail on the Marin Rift Zone 1 is $17.99, and I think that it puts this bike right into a great category of budget full suspension. There's a few other brands out there like Polygon that you can get for roughly that price. But one thing that I have found versus other brands is that the Marins weigh quite a bit less than some of their competitors. And that's one of the big reasons why I chose to go with the Rift Zone in the first place, was I found that saving about 3 to 5 pounds in the same price range really does make a huge difference, especially whenever you start climbing some steep hills. And speaking of weight, the 2023 came in at 34.56, which is a little bit less than the 2022 at 34.68. So there you go, that is the Rift Zone 1, and I am super excited to get this thing out on the trails. We just have to wait for the trails to dry up a little bit for me to actually get out and really give this bike a full test. I want to do some side-by-side runs on some of the most technical and fastest parts of my trail to really see if I can tell a difference between the 2022 and the 2023. But either way, if I can or can't tell a difference, I know that I love my 2022 Rift Zone, so I have a feeling I'm gonna love this 2023 Rift Zone. Now, don't forget, these bikes are available on Bikes Online, and I would really appreciate it if you guys would use my Bikes Online link. By clicking on those links, it doesn't add any cost to you, but it does come back and help out this channel. And for that, I greatly appreciate it. So until these trails dry up, we'll see you guys in the next one.